All right, folks, welcome to Between the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Chris Paris, People's Pundit. I warned Democrats, man. I did. I said, if you do this thing, you better be prepared for other Republican states to also retaliate. And in fact, they would have been better off just sitting tight and letting Republicans in Texas barely get through the effort to redistrict Texas. And I'll tell you why. But in a second, let's just take a look here at who's behind this. All right. Because in this warning, I've been telling people this guy wants to be president. Okay. He needs something to cling on to because he is the governor of California. And his record is not good, as Joe Rogan so recently put it in a video he did himself on his show. Okay. Look, the guy is gonna say, I did this, I got this, we're top here, we're number one. But the fact of the matter is, guys, you can pretend to be number one. The state-to-state migration speaks for itself. California is in a very bad way. It has had a hollow middle class that has been running, folks, as far as they could run to other states that have, better job opportunities, lower tax rates, et cetera, et cetera. And so Newsom needs something else because DeSantis isn't that great of a debater. Gavin Newsom is a better debater than Ron DeSantis. So even Ron DeSantis was able, however, to effectively point out how him doing this is completely fraudulent. If your state was number one and was so great to live in, you wouldn't be losing all of your middle class, save for the Central Valley, which is now voting Republican. Under Gavin Newsom, even in the Trump era, right? The state has moved to the right at a faster pace than most other states. In fact, in 2020, California was one of only two states, the other was Nevada, that went more for Donald Trump as a except for Florida, by the way, but that's a separate entity. But in that region of the country went more toward Donald Trump, even as the country moved some 6 points. 6 points. Let's call it 2.5. All right, be nice. I mean, let's say Hillary got her to, I'm not going to go down this road, right? Joe Biden won by over a little bit of 4%. Let's just say it. Hillary won by about 2 points. All right. But, it is what it is. California in the Trump era, where he's supposed to be so toxic, moved with Nevada to the right, while all of these other battleground states moved to the left towards Joe Biden. Okay. So he really doesn't have this great of an argument to make with his progressive base. So he needs something. All right. Even Hollywood has run away from the state of California, folks, which Rogan pointed out. We talk about this a lot. Where is it now? Georgia. It's in Atlanta. Look at BMF. I think it's Showtime. Where does BMF get filmed? Even in the D. It's supposed to be the D. Most of it shot in Atlanta. There's a mini Tinseltown that's growing very quickly because even Hollywood, except for when you're rich and already established and you're living there, but even Hollywood is running away from Hollywood. All right. So this is like a little bit ridiculous. He needs something and he's willing to gamble the Democratic position in the House, which was a good position in this incumbent midterm. They had history on their side, and they also have the post-2020 census redistricting effort on their side. They don't need to win by 8 points like they did in 2018, for instance. They don't need to win by 8 points in order to make gains. 2022 was a perfect example. And how they got there is something else we got to talk about. But they just had to sit back and let history take its course because the Republicans made a crucial mistake with Texas. And they didn't, and they can't. And now this ball is rolling, especially with the latest development. And even CNN, for instance, is trying to stop. There are more Republican states than blue states. They go in on these efforts as well. And it could be a bloodbath. They could wind up saving Republicans from themselves. But who cares, right? Rich, why are you warning them? It's worth pointing out that there's two things driving it. One is just pure ambition by Gavin Newsom, and the other is this irrational inability to conduct any amount of introspection whatsoever. Eventually, Democrats, no matter how stupid Republicans are, eventually Democrats will turn into something else. It's just terrifying because that something else, as I'll show you in a second, is even worse than the party that Barack Obama presided over, which ended up turning into a bunch of Trump voters in the Midwest. So eventually they'll end up frozen out on the edges of the country. And I don't know, guys. I'm not good. I'm an 80s baby. And I remember the Clinton era. It was much better back then. The environment, the atmosphere, everything. I'll take Bill Clinton back over George W. Bush any day of the week, but I'll take the environment, the atmosphere of politics. I'll take that back. Yes, sir, right now. And that's not the direction we're headed in, with people doing stupid shit like this and then going and touting the crazy left wing of the party that cannot win a national election in the middle of the country. All right. It's, again, major proponent of this entire effort, obviously with Proposition 50, is himself Gavin Newsom. All right. There he is touting that he's gotten Elizabeth Warren, a radical senator from the state of Massachusetts, to sign on with his plan to basically try to rig an election because they can't win one then on fair terms. I mean, that's guys, I mean, that's it. And I'm going to go over this in a second here. I'm going to back that up in a second here. Okay. And now here he is again with AOC, touting that he's got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a fanatic from one of the, most Democratic districts or one of the most Democratic states in the country. Also, by the way, moving toward Donald Trump in the Trump era. I mean, open your eyes, man. This is crazy. Like, Republicans are stupid and they're cowards, but Democrats are fanatics and stupid. I mean, there's a lot of smart people, and you shouldn't the right should never underestimate the left. But here, they don't see that Gavin Newsom is doing this purely for his own ambition, and he could be leading the Democratic Party down the forget about the primrose path. He could be leading them down the path to utter annihilation. And that's the most likely outcome at this current moment. All right, let's play CNN first. Okay, here we go.
Represents pretty accurately, mathematically, how the country's divided over the question of the presidency. But if you look at this is what the party pickups would be for congressional districts. Republicans, 5. Missouri, 1. North Carolina, 1. Ohio, 2 or 3. Indiana, 1 or 2. Florida, still discussion down there, but that could be another gold mine for them if they tipped it even further their way.
Ron DeSantis has already said that they absolutely will do that. So this isn't a hypothetical. Ron DeSantis has already said, if you want to rig California to be even more Democratic than it is by, since their own standards, which is the statewide popular vote. If you want to continue to do that, then guess what? We can play around with Florida too. Like, bring it. Like that is what this man, he's already said it. Look, whatever you may think about Ron DeSantis, does he strike you as a guy who bluffs? No, he will do it. And he'll figure it out with the legislature being so pro-Trump. Yes, he's had a more adversarial relationship with them in the post-nomination period because the state was Trump and they loved him, but he went against Trump. End of story. So Trump had he had Trump cards. He had ace up his sleeves. And that would be, a lot of people in the state party that really love him, in the state house that really love him, local people that really love. They will make it work with Ron DeSantis. Okay, let's go.
Kansas 1, New Hampshire 1, and Nebraska. Democrats, Utah, California, Maryland. Look at this. If you offset California and Texas, Missouri and Utah, Carolina and Maryland.
Let's go with the low numbers. Between Ohio, which, by the way, has been one of those states prior to recent years that has been losing population. So, people want to leave the cold and they go to Florida, right? Ohio, Illinois, these states are in the Midwest. They need a turnaround, but Ohio has recently begun to see that turnaround. So, but let's go with the low end. Let's say it's 2. Indiana, let's say it's 1. That's 3, plus Kansas is 4, plus New Hampshire is 5. Nebraska is something that Charlie, I'm not going to get in on that, but they could eliminate that swing district, which they absolutely could do. Charlie, before he was murdered, him and I tried to convince people to do that, only because you have to have a fair playing field. Charlie obviously had his own reason, but for me, it was very simple. You have to have a fair playing field. If other states are going to do something, I don't like this idea of, we give an electoral, but I don't like how Maine does it either. We all should be doing relatively the same thing. It makes the electoral college, it makes it make more sense. The same goes for how we do, proportionment in the country. So in any event, obviously the moral of the story here is, before this guy continues his talk, there are more red states than there are blue states. This is basic math, and even though there's population differences, that's not how congressional districts work. Yes, they're done by population, but not how many you carve them up by. They could conceivably pull this off and bury Democrats in their own numbers. Now, let's listen to the rest of this, and I'll explain to you why they should have just left Texas alone, and they would have had a better chance at mitigating the damage, okay?
Everything left over is an advantage to the Republicans.
And that's not
don't
everything.
Forget,
that's not everything. Florida, okay? That is not everything.
the Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republicans, that would represent that population in some ways. So
that's a hell of a way to characterize that, but we'll talk about that another day. The Voting Rights Act is outdated. Okay, guys, it's outdated. We don't need it anymore. The reason for the Voting Rights Act, if I was alive back then, I absolutely myself would have supported the Voting Rights Act. I would have advocated for it. But there is no reason to keep that act. It is decades and decades outdated, and we simply do not have the same issues to worry about. And if you don't take my word for it, ask the 30+% of African-American men in the state of Texas who voted for Donald Trump whether or not they think they're still living in that environment. They're not. All right, so moving on.
if that is gutted, Democrats could lose 19 seats. This would be a huge amount. But this is also a measure of how much the White House is concerned about this, because Donald Trump knows if the Democrats get the House again, there could be new investigations just like last time. There could be a new impeachment. There could be a lot of impediment to these plans that right now the Republicans in the House and Senate are letting run like a freight train.
Okay. Here's the problem with what Democrats did. Actually, here's the problem with what Republicans did. And they both don't seem to understand it. Democrats are reacting to what happened in Texas. Republicans made a seriously flawed calculation when they decided to do what they did with Texas. And if you talk to them, it just didn't sink in. Their benchmark was Donald Trump's performance. This is a Trump plus 5 district. This is a Trump plus 11 district. There's a Trump plus 3 district. In case nobody paid attention to inside the numbers during the election, Republicans in Congress did not perform as well as Donald Trump in most of the country, including in the state of Texas. All along the southern border, we've gone over these counties before. I'm not going to redo them again. We've talked about Hidalgo. We've talked about Starr. We've gone over this and over this and over this. That is driven by Donald Trump's appeal to Hispanic voters, especially in certain regions of the country that Republicans are lagging behind in. Republicans didn't win 30% of the black vote in Texas. Republicans didn't win X numbers of votes for Hispanics, even nationwide, let alone in Nevada, in Texas, in California, where, for instance, we talk about this several times, California 13, where John Duarte lost to Adam Gray, while Donald Trump carried the district by roughly 5 points. He did so on the back of Hispanic voters, not by squeezing more, white votes out of the white vote bloodstone. That's not how he did it. Mike Rogers lost the Senate seat in Michigan while Donald Trump basically carried them. Mike Rogers, he won them. He just won them by less. Not good enough. So while Republicans were making their calculations, they used the wrong benchmark. Democrats should have just left it. But they are terrified of this trend that still has shown a shift among Hispanic voters to Republicans overall. It's not as dramatic as it has been for Donald Trump, but it is still present. It is still there. And if you remember our conversations before the elections, the 2024 elections, we explained to you, going over the trend chart with Donald Trump's support over the years with black and brown voters, non-white voters, we've explained to you of the cascading effect, where typically you can identify a trend. It first, even for quite some time, it'll move very slowly, but it's there, it's consistent. And then all out of nowhere, all of a sudden, the dam breaks. And boom, it takes a party by complete surprise, even though it shouldn't. That happened with Trump going into 24, but Republicans aren't there yet. Democrats are afraid of the cascading moment where it all just comes down on them. Even though she lost her Senate seat, even though Senate race, even though she barely and questionably lost the race for governor in Arizona, which I myself testified in a court of law, Kerry Lake still did remarkably well in like Gila, Pinal, whatever you want to call it, and even some heavily Hispanic areas in Maricopa County. So there is a reason, but would you gamble over that? Would you gamble over whatever likelihood you peg it at that this will be the year that Republicans, the cascading effect happens and Republicans just win all of these Hispanic votes like Trump? The smarter answer is no, you wouldn't, because it's a midterm cycle, one in which it's an incumbent midterm, and Republicans simply do not have their ground game in place. Because the third-party groups, again, I'm going to say this at the risk of taking the wrath of the wannabes at the RNC, they do not have the groups in place who spent millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to get a vote out that they could not get out themselves. And Donald Trump was on the ballot, which made it much easier. I know, I did the freaking research. Donald Trump was literally the only candidate cited by these low prop voters as someone or a reason to go out and vote. And you had Elon Musk spending millions of dollars to try to do it. You had 10x votes, a company we went over that database, not a company, an organization. We went over that database. They shared information with Pressler's group and with Musk's group. And then, of course, you had Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA operating in places like Arizona and parts of Wisconsin. They did it too. And look at where Turning Point is now. They're working day and night to get out the legend shirts or whatever it is. They are not currently right now able to do what they were able to do in 24. Democrats should have just held back and waited to see how Texas panned out. All right. Now it's too late. I mean, it's full steam ahead now with this train. We saw this interview. There's a couple other things that I'm sure you guys would want to hear about in the interview. He went on to talk about lawfare and how the Department of Justice is coming after Democrats. And this, I feel like he knows he's next, or he thinks he's next. I don't think that that's going to happen, but Obama is a paranoid guy. Well, he's paranoid in his post-presidency. He wasn't paranoid at all during his presidency because there was nothing to be paranoid over. Well, who was he worried about? Trey Gowdy? Lindsey Graham? Give me a break. Those two were never going to do anything, hold Obama accountable for anything. The IRS, nothing. Even after it became abundantly clear that the White House was directly involved in Crossfire Hurricane, Joe Biden, with his approval, thanks to Obama's little handwritten note, we know that it was Joe Biden's idea and he approved it to use the Logan Act to go after Michael Flynn, General Michael Flynn. It's nuts. But he strutted out of that place unafraid of anybody. Now he sounds a little bit concerned. And he's always been meddling. He wanted Joe out. He maneuvered to get Joe out, and Kamala Harris outmaneuvered him. He did not want her. And she took, as 4 dozen phone calls roughly to outmaneuver Barack Obama, who was vacationing. He was chilling, living it up, living the life, guys. That's how Obama was outmaneuvered by Kamala Harris. He was chilling, big chilling. He didn't realize that people were persuadable to her argument. And she outflanked him. All right. But here he is now coming out in favor of Prop 15. And when we do, I didn't play the Rogan clip. Maybe we'll come back and do it. We have to go over what Prop 50 is. And then we'll just actually, before we let Obama talk, because he's hilarious, let's do that first. Okay. All right, let me get Proposition 50 up here. Here's from the official statewide. Okay, it will be decided on November 4th, 2025, which was a special election that Gavin Newsom engineered to get this done. You're going to see that polling suggests it's going to pass. All right, now, I mean, it is what it is. It's a blue state. And I'm not entirely certain here that Democrats have been given all the facts. Well, not that I'm not tired. Is that a fair way to put it? They have not been given all the facts. And this is crazy. This is incredibly stupid of them to do. Maybe they think Republicans are bluffing, folks. Maybe they think Republicans are bluffing. I don't know. And maybe they have good reason to think that, because in the past, Republicans have big talk. And they can run their mouth and they can write strongly worded letters and posts on, X. But that's about all they typically do. But here, I'm telling you, these states are already in motion. And DeSantis, who also commented on the impact of the Supreme Court's decision on the Voting Rights Act that he was just talking about, that will influence DeSantis's decision. He's already made comments. So you're looking at a high likelihood that Florida goes berserk with these seats. And they can. Why? Because it's going to be a little bit hard now for Democrats to argue that they want their independent commissions back after this. Here's what Prop 50 states. All right, let's bring it on up. All right, authorizes temporary changes to congressional maps. Oh, wait, did I get these other things? You're going to love this. I do have it. And I know. And because I already see some of you commenting on it. Yes, this is going to be a very rigged election. This is going to be a discussion. There are things going on with these ballots that are going out that I have never seen before. I've tried it. Look, if this is happening to you, if what we're going to go over is happening to you, I want you to send me a picture of your ballot. That's all. Okay. I mean, do you remember this from 2020? We did the same thing. I need to see it for myself, but I mean, I know people who are telling me, no, Rich, this is really happening. And if it is, I'm going to need to see it, guys, but we'll go over this in a second. Let's stick to this because it's hilarious. It's a temporary change to congressional redistricting. All right, maps in response to Texas's partisan redistricting legislative constitutional amendment. Now, we've actually been through the numbers between Texas and California. The vote share of Republican versus Democrat in the last election. There were some. We've also covered how flawed the 2020 census was to begin with. Okay, in Texas, and California, we're in both of these states, we're dealing with large numbers of illegal residents who are still counted by the census because the Supreme Court said that Donald Trump did not go about it and offer public comment time, sufficient public comment time, when he tried to remove the counting of illegal residents in the census. And then there are myriad other problems. North Carolina, I've gone on and on about, where we know for a fact that Eastern North Carolina, the more Republican area, for instance, they were undercounted. Texas claimed the same thing, that there were a lot of undercounts in areas that underrepresent they sufficiently represent the Republican vote, but clearly there was an under. All right, so we've gone over this. Let's just call it a wash. Let's just say it was like a wash. You can't seriously call Texas's maps partisan if you look at California. And the worst part isn't being discussed, because you wouldn't know about it unless you were involved with the independent commission that drew California's iterations in the first place, in which I was following it consistently and speaking to people consistently about it and what iteration they had analyzed and which one they eventually settled on. And the reason I was is because we had clients that were involved or impacted by the ultimate outcome of those iterations. So we had an interest in it, and we're constantly, making phone calls to find out what was what. And they did adopt the more ridiculous map, of course, that tried to acknowledge, and that's what this does even more. It's on steroids. They tried to acknowledge that Republicans were beginning to gain ground in the Central Valley and in Hispanic suburbs outside of LA, even though they began to lose areas in more, that more whiter and traditionally Republican in San Diego County and, of course, in Orange County. So the iteration that was adopted, if you were somebody who said, hey, look, this is going on, now get me an iteration that addresses this so we can kind of fudge it and deal with it and offset how much these other areas are moving Republican. If the iteration they adopt, which was, I believe, the 5th, was something that represented what that person would come up with. Now the plan they have, if this passes, is even worse. Make no mistake about it. The plan that Gavin Newsom and Democrats have put forward to redraw California disenfranchises no group more than Hispanics in the state of California, specifically Hispanics who are working class Hispanics. So just remember that the next time you hear a certain party pretend to be a champion of non-white voters. They are absolutely trying to overcount bougie white voters and undercount Hispanic voters. It's clear as day. No serious person could look at it and say this isn't an attempt to disenfranchise working Hispanics who are moving more to the right. That is what they are doing. 100%. All right, let's read it though. It's a temporary measure, all right, in response to so-called Texas's partisan redistricting, and it's an amendment. All right, I got to read it on the other screen here, guys. That's way too small for me. Requires temporary use of new congressional district maps through 2030, which they have already decided on, like I said. Directs Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to resume enacting congressional district maps in 2031. Establishes policies supporting nonpartisan redistricting commissions nationwide. You have got to be kidding me. So they want these so-called nonpartisan redistricting commissions, which are not at all nonpartisan. They want that, but they don't want it now in this case until they're done using their own partisan edge in the legislature to undo what those so-called nonpartisan redistricting commissions did. Follow me? I know it's like, wait, what did you just say? Like, is your head spinning around yet? Wait till I play you Obama's remarks. The fiscal impact is a one-time cost to counties of up to a few $1 million. A few. Guys, you are so disgraced and disrespected as a citizen, a so-called citizen of California, that they don't even bother to give you an estimate, a legitimate estimate on what this will cost you as a taxpayer of the state. They just say it's a few $1,000,000, shut your mouth and do me a favor and be stupid enough to read that and not understand what they're really saying to you. That's how you ended up with a worthless multi-billion-dollar high-speed rail system. A vote yes on this measure means the state would use new, legislatively drawn congressional district maps starting in 2026. California's new maps would be used until the California Citizens Redistricting Commission draws new maps following the 2030 census. Listen, so they want their partisan friends now to cut up districts more favorable to their party now. And then they want to go back to the map drawn by their friends that they put on these commissions. These commissions are not nonpartisan. If you are you think they just go and find the most qualified person to be on these commissions? Then I have a bridge to sell you in the 5 boroughs. These are jobs that go to their friends who they can count on to draw the most favorable map that they can get away with at that time. Even that map is no longer favorable enough for them, so they want to go back to the legislature. A no vote on this measure means current congressional district maps drawn by the California Citizens Redistricting Commission would continue to be used in California until the commission draws new maps following the 2030 census. Now, for those of you who know me and have been listening for a while, you know that I don't support these independent commissions. That's bullshit. They're not independent at all. These are job kickbacks. These are jobs well given to people for reasons. These are status quo jobs. And they go and find the most liberal professors who pretend to be academics or fake data gurus to draw them out. And I'm sorry, Sean. I already know I'm going to get a message from you. I know you're on one. Point made. Point made. That's not the original design of this system. Our elected representatives in the legislature should draw these maps. And if you don't like them, then guess what? The next election, you can go to the damn polling place or hand in your ballot early or vote in person or send it by mail or whatever. And you can go ahead and you can vote those people out of office on that issue based on what you think was a dereliction of duty to draw a favorable map. With the independent commissions, you know what you can do? Go pound sand. There's nothing you can do. Gavin Newsom's friend drew a map, and that's it. It's done. Done. No way to hold anybody accountable. Nothing. But Democrats have been arguing for years now, for basically my entire political career, that you don't deserve the right to draw your own maps, that they know people who are smarter than you. You're dumb. You're too stupid to understand this stuff. That has been their position for more than 10 years now. And they want to undo it to be able to fudge a new map that undercounts working Hispanics. And then when they're done, they want to go back to their friends. I'm sorry, but you have to be the biggest tool on planet Earth if you believe this bull. You vote yes on this, you deserve the government that you get. It's that simple. You vote yes on this, you are a sheeple person. You are as stupid as they think you are. Here's Barack Obama in his interview, which made a lot of noise because he said a lot of stupid shit. But here's Barack Obama on this in his new ad coming out in favor of Proposition 50.
The whole nation is counting on you. Democracy is on the ballot November 4th.
Democracy!
Republicans want to steal enough seats in Congress to rig the next election and wield unchecked power for 2 more years. With Prop 50, you can stop Republicans in their tracks. Prop 50 puts our elections back on a level playing field. preserves independence.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Puts them back on a level playing field. The independent commissions didn't put them on a level playing field. The map you have in California isn't a fair map. What are you talking about? Because of what Texas did? Two wrongs make a right? Did your so-called nonpartisan independent commission give you a fair map or not? Because those of us who argued in 2022 that that was a completely partisan map were told, no, this is a fair map. Which one is it? Do you understand what I'm saying? The logic doesn't hold. It's either one or the other. He's now going to argue that it preserves independent redistricting at the same time it returns power to the people. Watch.
Redistricting over the long term and lets the people decide.
Translation. They want you to be stupid and give them a temporary power to cut that map up, and after which they will preserves the power in the long term. And afterwards, they will give back the power that is yours. Yours. They will give that power back to their elitist friends who look down on you and will spit on your graves because you're just stupid, unwashed people who don't understand this stuff. I cannot believe that this intellectual inconsistency is not more at the forefront of this debate everywhere it's being had. If you watched this show, you will understand now. But anywhere else, they're not talking about this. Understand what they want to do. They want to sell you on this being a way to return back your power, while at the same time, it literally codifies stripping you of that power, which they stripped you of already before, and they want to temporarily give it back to you. This is crazy. I cannot believe a modern political party is so bold as to make this argument and then pretend they're doing you a favor. We're giving it back to you for a time. Be happy about it. Accept it. Celebrate it before we take it back from you. This is crazy. It's crazy there are people in this country stupid enough to fall for this. I'm sorry. I normally don't like to denigrate anybody. I'm not. But I'm not. I'm saying this as a point of fact. You have to be dumb to buy this. You can't be smart if you don't understand what they're doing. They're laughing at you. They're making a fool of you. And they're doing all of this when they could have just sat back and watched Republicans overstate their vote share in those districts anyway in Texas, because they are not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. We're right back to the 80s again. You are not Ronald Reagan. You will not win those votes. Ronald Reagan will win 20% of the Democratic Party. You will not. Not without a lot more, which they never delivered. Because the same kind of people who stymie Donald Trump at every turn and pretend to be his friend, which he in turn supports for God knows, we all know actually, certain reasons. The John McCain kind of Republican, and his friend Lindsey Graham, by the way, who did the same thing. Oh, John McCain totally stabbed Ronald Reagan in the back. Department of Education, tax cuts, all of it. He stabbed Reagan in the back after Reagan helped him. Same thing. Unbelievable. Didn't deliver then, didn't win the votes that Reagan got. Republicans, not delivering now. John Thune is out celebrating Indigenous Day yesterday. I can't imagine why Republicans can't perform even with ethnic Catholics, especially Italians, in, I don't know, Bucks County, Pennsylvania? Or the 5 boroughs to freaking Monmouth County in New Jersey? Gee, I don't know. Because you have no spine to defend their guy. That's why. Unbelievable. Back to it. Let's go. So let's keep the focus where it belongs at the current moment, which is on the Democratic Party for this unbelievably intellectually dishonest, pretzel twisting, flip flopping, like it. I just can't. I mean, it's right in front of everybody, and nobody is, even Republicans aren't making this argument. Tell the people what it is, and maybe they will respect you for it. Tell them exactly what this is. A perfect example to understand how politicians think you are stupid, including this guy.
Return your ballot today. Vote yes on 50.
Let's talk about those ballots. This guy, you got Gavin Newsom who wants to be president, and this guy who's afraid he's going to jail. That's what's happening. Man, in this, and I didn't play the interview where he goes into it. I can get that interview real quick if you want. I mean, I just found it absolutely unbelievable. It's another example of a upside. I mean, it's not even a flip flop. It's an incredible example of Democrats do something, and they create these little worlds where this works in their minds. Oh, I do have that video actually. Okay, hold on one second. I'll get it. Obama, we'll call it Obama lawfare. Okay. So they are great. They have the corporate media who helps them do it. And before we move on to the ballots, I am going to play this. I am. They are great at creating these little Alfred Hitchcock Twilight Zone level world, like level alternative realities, where they do something to their political opponents and then accuse their political opponents of doing it to them. And I mean, it's textbook projection. Laura has said this for years. I mean, since we were kids, trying to determine what you are, right? In your first presidential election, Laura was always said this. The Democratic Party, they're projectionists. They project onto you what they are. So if you, and look, as a not fully white person, I'll take a word for it. They claim, and then you'll see it in the South, the South is so racist and this and that. You will never see more racist environment than the bigotry of low expectations that we were raised with in the Northeast. And then you move down South and realize this isn't exactly antebellum. Okay, like none of this is true. Everything you were told was a total scam. All right. So she always said they're projectionists. That's who they are. That's what they are. And I'm not saying that to dog anybody. I'm pointing out the observation of a voter who happens to be my wife and happens to be somebody who is Hispanic, by the way, and always thought that. This is a great example. Here you have Hillary Clinton, the DNC, all of those years ago, claiming that Donald Trump colluded with the Russian government. Vladimir Putin is an asset. They're assets in the Republican Party of the Russians, right? Ooh. Meanwhile, she's literally doing that with the Ukrainians. Here we have Barack Obama accusing his political opponents of doing what his administration did, which is sic the Justice Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, political appointees at these agencies and bureaus, on their political opponents for the purpose of destroying their lives because they cannot beat them at the ballot box. Our way in America is to solve our political differences at the ballot box, not in the jury box. But that's exactly what they did. And now that some people want them to be held accountable for it, and by some, I mean, I don't know, the country that elected Donald Trump, again, with 91 felony indictments and a conviction, even though it was a sham conviction, it's a total farce that will, is not going to stay with him forever. They elected him with that over his head. And in response to the country wanting what's called accountability, They're crying now as if they are the victims. By the way, why wasn't Jim Comey perp walked? Roger Stone was perp walked. The FBI tipped off CNN. They were at his house first thing in the morning before the sun even came up to watch Roger Stone be perp walked. So already it's not the same thing. Already the scales of justice are imbalanced. And yet here we are, those who perpetrated all of these injustices in the first place, now facing accountability and crying that they are the victims of the very thing that they perpetrated on their political opponents. I mean, guys, in order to follow this stuff, your head is going like this, right? Like whether it's Proposition 50 or whether it's this next clip, your head is just spinning around like, wait, what? You just can't follow it. And that's the problem, ultimately. Whoops. That's the problem with a progressive ideology that isn't principled in any way. I mean, the needs of the state change, the needs of the party change, and you find that your values change, right? Because nothing can be consistent. It has to evolve, kind of like his ideas, kind of like his positions on gay marriage. This is a man who was twice...
We don't want...
Whoops. This is a man who was twice elected, swearing to God and country that he supported traditional marriage. He gets reelected, and not only does it change, but the entire party's views change, which you can see in the polling, because the hive mind got the signal, the pheromone signal from the Queen. That is not a solid foundation. That's not conviction. Dangerous. It's almost the nature of that ideology. It's the nature of it. Whereas, like, traditional conservatism isn't really even an ideology. I would say more populism is more of an ideology. Traditional conservatism is more of a way of life. So the principles don't, and I'm not saying they never shift, folks, and both sides don't flip-flop or betray their stated principles. Of course they do. But one does it in a manner that'll twist your head around trying to follow it. Listen, these independent commissions are really, really important. And also, power to the people. But we got to take that power real quick, just a little bit. Because this isn't working out, okay? And we got to get people who are smarter than you in order to get this fair. In order for you to, power to the people to become a thing, we got to take that power from you. Give it to the hands of our friends, these elites. They know better. And then 2 years later, oh, by the way, wait, time out. We want to restore your power. Yeah. But just for a minute. And then we're going to take it back again because, we need to preserve these independent commissions. You know what I'm saying, right? You got me. And then we'll talk to you later, okay? Don't forget to vote. Who is this dumb? Maybe I'm just, I don't know. This is why I'm proud to have come from the other side of the tracks. We don't believe bullshit over there, okay? We can smell it a mile away. And then meanwhile, you have some like Yale and Harvard grads come over and totally buy everything I just say. I've known a lot of educated people, folks, who are pretty damn stupid. And I know a lot of uneducated people who will lap you in intelligence. You can't be this dumb. Follow the lady. Okay? That's all I got to say. If you buy that, come on over to this desk right here and do me a favor. Follow the lady. How much you want to bet? How much you putting down? Maybe I'll start farming the stupidity too. My God. All right. Here's part of that interview we were talking about, actually, where he talks about lawfare. So I will play this as like a hat tip, but we only have 10 minutes and I got 2 more videos to get through. So let's just I will try not to harp on the absolutely ridiculous pretext for his argument as much as I can.
Yeah, we don't want kangaroo courts and trumped up charges. That's what happens in other places that we used to.
I can't stop. I'm sorry. Trumped up charges. Listen to me when I tell you that the same district that prosecuted the serial killer / drug kingpin known as the Black Hand of Death in New York was charged along with John Gotti, not even a quarter of the number of indictments that they leveled against Donald Trump in the same district. You hear what I'm saying? John Gotti and the Black Hand of Death were not indicted in that district as much as Donald Trump was indicted in that district. Do you want to sit here and tell me more about trumped up charges? This guy is a clown, man.
Scold, yeah, for doing that. We want like our court system and our Justice Department and our prosecutors to be, and our FBI to be, just playing things straight and looking at the facts. And
oh my God. Oh my God. What do you even say to these people? What do you even say to these people? Oh Lord. Oh my God. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, were they, just like, playing into the facts in the friggin' broom closet while they were while they were texting each other back and forth about, I'm Superman, baby. Don't worry, I'm not going to let Donald Trump win. I got a green light from the White House. Now, what you going to wear tonight, honey? Right? Shooting it straight, Barack. This is ridiculous. You've got to be kidding me. Were you playing it straight when you used a law that's 125 years outdated, meant for a time when we still got on ships with ambassadors to go overseas to be the diplomat of the United States of America? When you use that law against Michael Flynn, who served this country for 40 years in and out of uniform, 4 decades of his life. Why? Because he embarrassed you, giving you the correct advice in the Middle East, which, because you didn't listen to him, led to a caliphate and a whole bunch of Westerners being beheaded. Let's not forget a beautiful young girl who went over there to do good in the world, brutally raped and murdered because of your stupid ass, which Donald Trump, by the way, had to recover her body and find out what happened to her. Or did they get her body? I don't even remember if they ever did. That's why the family publicly supported Donald Trump. The Logan Act. Paul Manafort did work for his friends in Eastern Ukraine. Tons and tons of money for survey research so their friends can be viewed more respectively in the United States. That's the relevant work that Paul Manafort did, relevant to Ukraine and Russia. That had nothing to do with Donald Trump's campaign. Absolutely nothing. Paul Manafort was hired because he was the one of only 2 people on planet Earth who got into a floor fight for delegates on the floor of a convention, a Republican convention, by the way. That's why the Trump campaign hired Paul Manafort. That's it. Because Ted Cruz was looking like he was going to give him a floor fight, or at least try to weasel his way into taking committed delegates away from Donald Trump so he couldn't clinch the nomination. They were all over this, trying to figure out how to do that. And this guy and his friends indicted him over some fake ass conspiracy that's not even a law. That never happened. I just wasted 5 minutes railing against this guy. Let's watch the rest of it.
Yeah, not meddling in politics the way we've seen lately. And I think if enough people start not just being in a fetal position, but also not worrying about it,
Hope he's in the fetal
and
Detached.
and detached from it, but being vigilant, but also saying, you know what,
Enough of this shit.
we can stand up to this.
Yeah.
You know, we can call it like we see it.
Yeah.
You know, we need people who have whatever platforms they have to be able to say, no, that's not who we are, and to be willing to get attacked on X
Yeah.
by whoever.
First of all, you sit like a girl. Okay? Can we just call it how it is? You sit like a Mary, bro. You sit like a Mary. And that's why you were terrified of Donald Trump running in 2012, which we all now know thanks to this autobiographer who finally wrote one about 6 years too late for the country to figure out who this guy really was. This is a man who didn't like a Supreme Court decision. During his State of the Union, attacked the Supreme Court for it, eliciting a never-before-seen physical and verbal response from a Supreme Court justice sitting in the front row. So instead, because he doesn't believe in separation of powers, instead he sicked his IRS on his political opponents who were established because of that Supreme Court ruling. Is that who we are? Actually, in fact, it is who they are, because Roosevelt did that. Roosevelt did the same thing. They've been doing this for years, sicking the Department of Treasury on their political opponents. And actually, you don't even have to, they're so into this, they're so accustomed to this, that he didn't even need to give an order. It's called tone from the top. Everybody knows what's cool and what's not cool. Lois Lerner knew she'd be just fine doing that, as long as nobody caught her. And then at a point now, folks, where it doesn't even matter. If someone like Lois Lerner got caught doing that under Biden, they would actually justify how that was the virtuous thing to do. Back then, at that time, they still had to pretend like it was wrong and that he had nothing to do with it. We're beyond that now. We've passed that. We've crossed that Rubicon. It's just incredible. Incredible. I spend most of my time railing against the Republican Party. Honestly, it was time for a break from that, because this just cannot go uncriticized. And again, I think we all know what it is. This is because Gavin Newsom wants to be president, and this guy's afraid of being hauled in. Like, that's it. Like, that's the deal. They want the House of Representatives so they can go ahead and launch their impeachment investigations against Donald Trump again. They get 1 seat majority, and they will do that. They will cripple this man's administration again. That's how ineffective Republicans are. They can have a multi-seat majority and not be able to pass a bill for the life of them. Forget about stopping a Democratic president from getting his agenda or his or her agenda items through, getting their cabinet confirmed. You can have a Secretary of Defense nominated who doesn't believe in civilian control over the U.S. military, and he's perfectly qualified, especially if he's black. Get him through, no problem. It's only the thing that terrified the Founding Fathers the most. A standing army and someone who doesn't believe in civilian control in command of that military power. That was literally their number one concern. And you'd know that if you were in the book club. peoplespundit.locals.com. When we read The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution. Book club will be back very soon. I got yelled at by Bill yesterday. Not yelled at, but I got checked by Bill yesterday in the chat. And you're right. It is time to bring it back, regardless of whether or not we've settled on something. We should at least be doing it to talk about what we're going to read next. It just has been a very busy time. We've read a lot of good stuff. Half of them are over here on my shelf still. Nations and Identities. Vincent Pecora, great book. Jack Snyder, Myths of Empire. My God, everyone should read that book. John Mearsheimer, Tragedy of Great Power Politics. The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution. I mean, that, as Max Weber said, the German sociologist who wrote The Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism, which probably we should read as well. Stuff like that should be taught in the kindergarten classes in America, all across America. No kindergarten student should go without knowing these things. All right. But again, we know at this front. I will play the Rogan clip real quick. We have 3 minutes, but then I got to get to these ballads. All right. Actually, no. Let's play the ballad clip first. Here's Steve Hilton. I'm asking you, if you got one of these and you're in California, I want to see them. Please send them to me, tweet them to me, message them. If you're on locals, go to local support, please, and message them. It will get sent directly to my email. I will go check it out. I want to know if you have one of these, because I have been told now by numerous people, no, Rich, this is real. But here's still Steve Hilton. You guys may or may not remember him. He does live in California himself, by the way. And he says this is happening. And he's putting together, obviously, a little clip thing here. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But he did a video about it himself. This is what is apparently going on with Proposition 50, which is insane if it's true. So I want to know. I want confirmation it's true is what I'm asking you. So if you're in California and you got one, send it my way.
Watch this video. This is a real video of a California voter who's just received his ballot for this outrageous election rigging scheme from Gavin Newsom. And you watch what happens. It is clear that now for millions of Californians in multiple counties across our state, their vote in this election is not secret.
Vote is cast right here. Put the ballot in this way.
Secret ballots are the foundation of confidence in the democratic process. If you don't have that, no one can have any confidence in it, and that's
Whoops. And I agree with that. I just want to pause, Steve, real quick. And why I'm asking you guys for confirmation is because there may be, is there not another envelope over this thing like we have seen in California in the past? That's Michigan. That's Florida. I have ballot images here. Okay. Is there not another envelope that is given to you? I do think I see postage on that envelope where it slides in, like you put your ballot into an envelope and then it goes over a cover, an envelope cover. Is that not the case with Proposition 50? If not, again, send it to me and let me know. But just keep in mind, I'm looking for that context because that was a big controversy in the 2020 election, whether or not the ballot sleeves, the envelope sleeves, right, were preserved at all. And because if they're not, then we didn't know whether or not those ballots were in fact also visible. Why does that matter? Obviously, the U.S. Postal Service is a freaking government job, okay? The Democratic Party is the party of the federal government. They owe their livelihoods and their careers and everything, their retirement, to the federal government. They are overwhelmingly Democratic voters. This is not some unheard of thing to hear about postal workers destroying ballots. If they can see the damn vote on the envelope, through the envelope, then this election is completely fraudulent. There is no integrity preserved in this election. They have got to have sleeves on those envelopes. If they don't, I want to know. All right. But in the meantime, let me finish this video and I'm going to shut up.
where we are today. This whole election was rushed, it was pushed through the legislature without proper scrutiny, and here's the result. Massive irregularities right across our state, multiple counties, millions of people affected. That's why I'm saying today that we need to suspend the Prop 50 election while we investigate these irregularities and fix them so we can have confidence in our elections in California, including this one. Suspend the Prop 50 election.
Let me just say, I don't know it again, and thanks for your super chat. Can't save it a live stream, but I'll catch up. How do you see the elections in Virginia and New Jersey? I think Citarelli has a good shot. Well, 53. What we do know is that we're gonna poll New Jersey. Hopefully, it's up on the Public Polling Project, and I think it's about like 10% of the way funded, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go and look at it. I have not checked on it lately. Let me see. I'll give you an update right now. It's looking like 10%. Come on, speed up. It's got that like graphic. Yeah, ballpark. about 10%. I don't know why the national one says nothing. You can clearly see 11 donations. Just go by the green bar. Okay, that's the progress bar, and I'll have tech people go and look at it. The give dudes to go and look at it. So it's in Virginia very clearly in the last couple of polls, at least for attorney general, that race has definitely shifted Republican. All right. Jay Jones got caught fantasizing over killing the Virginia leader of the House of Burgess. Yeah. House of Delegates. Right. And his children, fantasizing about killing the Republican leader of the lower chamber and his children. Disgusting stuff. Not a single Democrat has denounced it, which is incredible because, you know, if the roles were reversed, every single candidate running all the way up to the White House would have had to denounce this candidate. They would have felt the pressure from the media would have been constant drumming 24/7 until everyone abandoned that candidate. Nobody has done that with Jay Jones. It's unbelievable. And at this point, Spanberger was the odds-on favorite, but we'll have to see whether or not it's dragging her down some. All right. Barnes and I told you guys, we just did not see this big, like 14+% victory for Spanberger. Maybe that this calms down and voters iron out here. But I just don't know that we're in that environment yet. When I feel like we are, I'll tell you. But when you have down ballot races hurting you like that, even Abigail Spanberger herself hasn't denounced Jay Jones. It inevitably is going to weigh you down. This was a disgusting revelation that we had with the Democratic candidate for Attorney General, and there's no way the voters are not going to be turned off by it. But I don't know. I think Spanberger's still the favorite. I really do. And Citarelli, I mean, again, we're going to poll it. I will say this. We are now starting to see Democrats do what was expected, which was expand their return ratio. They're going to start voting heavily. This is what Democrats do. Republicans had an early start at returning their requested early ballots by mail. Democrats are going to start running up the score now. The question will be, and I'm going to have to wait until, again, you're talking about the last week in October. I'm going to have to wait to see whether Republicans are voting enough in person, and then of course we'll poll it, but in person early to be able to get close enough to Cheryl. So we'll have to wait. All right, it is what it is. But I do think it's going to be, as of right now, it probably is going to be a close election. For locals, I put a poll up that was covered by Jim over at Save New Jersey. But again, I don't know that pollster. I'm not familiar with them. I'm not familiar with the one who did the poll for Save Jersey or Save New Jersey, whatever PAC it is. So, I'm skeptical. I'm always skeptical of campaign polling. I've taught you guys to be skeptical of that as well. So, campaign or PAC polling, PACs usually have, not usually, they have an agenda. And one of those agendas is to constantly raise money. So a poll that shows you're doing better than you are is something that they, in this business, unfortunately, is common practice. That's why I don't like the poll for candidates. I definitely don't like the poll for PACs unless I get an assurance from them that they're not going to bust my balls to try to skew the poll. I don't want to even get into this conversation. And they do it all the time. And it's like, I don't know if you've heard, I don't do that shit. I can't stand it. I can't stand being put in the position or being asked. I am the pollster, not you. Don't say, hey, Rich, what if we word this question this way? Shut up. I'm the pollster. Go find somebody who will push it for you. That is not me. All right. So I am very skeptical when I see things like that. We'll have to, we'll just have to wait, 53. That's the best answer I can give you. I like the name though. And then Kimmy, Adam Carolla says he never feels comfortable with a guy who can cross that deeply. Me either. Men don't sit like that. Okay. All right. Get out. That makes me uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, stop pretending you're so sophisticated. You look effeminate. You're a man. Be a man. Anywho, that's why you drop 135 pounds on your chest over there. It's pathetic. By the way, I took a modest break from the gym and was able to do like 40 more pounds. I was like, what? Somebody told me too, like, you need to chill out. You're over gymming, and they were right. Although I am ready to get back in and get crazy again. We've had a lot going on, and I haven't been able to. And I'm rather terrified of turning back into a fat data slob who sits at his desk all day and like, oh, you're insulting people. Tough shit. All right. Speaking of which, I'm uncomfortable. I'll end the show with this. Here's Joe Rogan, funny man, talking about Gavin Newsom as president. All right, and then we'll take the show out after this.
Have any faith in Gavin Newsom?
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of funny because he wants to be president so bad.
That's true. What it looks
But
like.
you can't ruin a city and then go on to ruin a state and say, guys, that was just practice.
I know.
Once I get it as a president, I'm going to fix it. Fix it all.
I mean, it's so crazy, but he's such a great politician. I mean,
No,
he's
not.
so smooth.
He's
You
not,
don't think
though.
so?
No, I think he's terrible.
How's he remained in power for so long?
Low competition. There's no one who's good is competing against him. There's no sincerity.
I should say he's not a good. I should say he's smooth. He comes.
I mean,
across
he's a
smooth.
good bullshit artist.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But it's like what the things that he says when he gets confronted with things. We're the highest this and the highest that. Like everybody's leaving.
Yeah.
You have the highest unemployment.
Yeah.
You have the highest homelessness.
Look what they did with Hollywood.
Money's missing. You killed Hollywood. Like Hollywood doesn't exist anymore. It's literally gone.
That was such an easy one.
mandated vaccines for kids that didn't need them. You guys, he did horrible shit.
I'm sorry. That's funny. But he's right. I mean, and Pete Buttigieg was the same thing. It's like he was a bad mayor. He couldn't even manage a small city in Indiana. And he has the audacity to run for president. Why, bro? Can we just admit it? Because you're gay, you're qualified to be president? Come on. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's shit like this that's getting us into this horrible position. This is terrible. What makes Trump qualified, Rich? I can hear you Democrats already. I don't know, because he ran one of the most successful, profitable businesses in the world, and because he's been chummy with every world leader since he was like in his 30s, and I don't know. So stupid. Guy couldn't even run a tiny town, man. This guy, Gavin Newsom, wins one of the easiest elections ever for a Democratic politician to win, to be the mayor of a town that like everyone's too high to care about the status of. Goes on to be a shitty governor that even though they have a 30-point edge in a recall effort, somehow manages to get enough signatures to get through. Presides over a state with outward migration worse than any other state in the country. While in the Trump era, you're supposed to have TDS shifts to the right double digits, even though the working class is leaving it. That's a hell of an accomplishment. How do you shift a red state? How do you shift a blue state double digits to the right when all of the right-leaning demographics are leaving your state, fleeing your state? Because they're afraid to step on a needle when they go out in their backyard. Somebody want to answer that for me? And now you want to be president? He's not a good politician. Joe Rogan is 100% correct. There's no competition. That's why they need to drag Obama up out of the grave. To speak for them. There's nobody there. The bench is narrow and shallow. AOC is probably going to run for president. Who else is there? Who else is there? I mean, I actually have some ideas for Democrats. They're just too left-wing to take them. There are people out there who could do serious damage to the aspirations of a vice president, J.D. Vance. They're just too left-wing and fanatical to nominate these people. They have no prayer. No prayer. This guy wants to be president, so he's willing to chuck. And Democrats, you really need to think about this. You guys should be the ones who are more angry at Gavin Newsom at all. I know you're desperate for a leader because you're leaderless and your party is rudderless. I know you are desperate, but I am telling you, this guy is leading you down the primrose path. You are headed to disaster, all because he wants to be president. And the last president is leading you down there because he's irrelevant now. He's responsible for Donald Trump. If you hate Donald Trump, you should be very upset with Barack Obama, in the same way that Republicans are very upset with George Bush for giving them Barack Obama. You should be upset with Barack Obama for giving you Donald Trump. And this guy comes out to push this and other bullshit because he's afraid that his illegal actions and the actions illegally taken by his staffers and his appointees when he was president are going to come back and bite him. Because as of right now, the only one standing between him, and I don't like the prosecutions of presidents, I don't like it, I will stay consistent. But the other people around him may be in deep shit. And the only one standing between them, between Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and Barack Obama and his crew is Jim Comey. Would you trust that? I think if Jim feels like he's facing any real danger, that 8-foot gargantuan is going to fall on the floor like a little sissy and start sucking on his big toe. He's going to point right at you. That's interesting. I'll check this out. What's up, Peppers? New California voter registration numbers, first 200 days of 2025, 82K unaffiliated, 48K GOP, and only 190 Dems. What? I have to go check that out. All in a state where they've been enjoying the fruits of replacement for 2 decades now. It would be, and I've said this for a long time, it will be the biggest political irony story ever in the United States of America if Hispanics turned into a Republican voting group. They're already in deep trouble when it comes to the Electoral College. I don't know how they're going to put together 270 electoral votes in the next election if something doesn't drastically change. And forget about the one after that. When you have states like New York and New Jersey shifting to the right as well. And states like Pennsylvania just continuing to bleed blue. I don't know. North Carolina already looks like it's going the way of the Florida. You know, the Democrat North Carolinian is going the way of the Florida Democrat soon, which went the way of the dodo bird circa 2017. The dodo bird. Yeah, dodo bird. I just don't see it. The same trends, the same things that are happening in North Carolina happened in Florida already. The only difference is there are more unaffiliates and unaffiliateds. But if we take a sneak peek, do I have time before I gotta go get the little one? Let's check both. Let's check the voter analysis and let's check the exits, because I'm fairly certain that we know for a fact that just like in Georgia, Donald Trump carried them. So what does that matter? You know what I mean? There it is, Fox News voter analysis, which is really the AP Votecast. Here is national results. Let's go down to, this is the Edison's. There we go. There's North Carolina. Let's go to state for Edison. Let's go down to, no, those are results. We don't want results. We want exit polling. Voter analysis, I think we do. Is it equals North Carolina or hat tip North Carolina? I think it may be equals. Yeah, it's equals North Carolina, I think. It may even be question mark equals North Carolina. I'm a URL guy. Duh. And they have it more. The Votecast is more robust. Okay, that's loading up. Let's see what it was in North Carolina. Oh, yeah. That's what I thought. Not quite as bad as Georgia, for instance, but shit, bad enough. Share screen. Here is the Edison Research exit poll. Oh, come on with the ads, man. As is published by CNN. I'm sorry, I don't have it up on like PVD or anything. According to Edison Research, the electorate was actually R+2, which is, I believe, about right. and Donald Trump went independents, who made up 35% of the state vote, by 4 points. In the AP Votecast, this I love, breaks down by actual gender too. I personally like that. Republican men, Republican women. We're gonna start doing that actually with we're gonna start doing that with party with leaners. Okay, let's do party. Someone. Okay, that's giving me the favorability of each party. No, I want to do party by just a vote. Party with leaners. What about without? Looks like they don't have this. That's not right. Party. That's weird. Let's just go back to the regular outright result. They gotta have it. Okay. Let's go back to, there's Trump Harris, there's race, age. Give me a second. Here's education. I personally do like things broken down by gender. Okay. That's together though. If you don't lean, all right, Trump, it says he lost independence. Well, this is the Votecast, which may be a little bit weird. Honestly, it may be. Yeah, because it's leaning. So there were a lot. It says he lost independence, but that's because they're saying that Republicans and lean Republicans were 51% of the vote. And that seems a little bit high to me, but let's out of curiosity, by ideology, is it close? 87-12 compared to the exit polls, which is 90-9. I mean, close. The problem with the Votecast is you can't get a beat. They're saying independents were only 7%, and that's, of course, crazy. All right, look, I got a boogie. We'll have to go get my kid. I'm getting a little yell out thing, which I want to go do anyway. But, yeah, guys, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, share them far and wide. The link to all of the stuff is below with the public polling project and all that other stuff. I'm tied up around my cords. And what else am I missing? If I am missing something, of course, as always, I'll post it onto social media and onto locals. All right. But again, like the videos, share them far and wide, and contribute to the public polling project based on your interest. New Jersey, national, whatever. We have to do a national soon, like before New Jersey. Even if we do New Jersey in like 2 weeks, we will have to do a national. So consider that if you do contribute, and consider that if you share with others who will contribute. Say, hey, look, this is where we're missing. All right. And then I can't wait. We're gonna have to do a show to show you some of the stuff that's going on with the other the political violence study, which is more than just a survey, and you got to bear with me on it. We have something very different here, and we're going to go over it on one of the odds with Barnes, and I don't want to, until Barnes and I have a chance to discuss it, and maybe even, which we already did already, discuss it, see what we're seeing, go back into the field, tweaking things a little bit. Until we have a chance to do that, we're not going to go over it yet. But yeah. And Gammon, Fireman, A Game Man on Agamemnon, Fireman. I mean, yeah, I don't have like an email the public uses. If you go to the support page on locals, then you can send me an email there, or even through Big Data Poll. It's just that Big Data Poll is going to go through an employee who's then going to send it to me. But if you go to the local support thing, I'm gonna immediately see it. Okay. And yeah, I had to turn my DMs off because of the constant BS on Twitter I was getting from people, especially from people who didn't like my take on the bombing of Iran and Israel. I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. You don't like it, tough shit. And that's all. And it's a shame too, because I always prided myself on being somebody who read that stuff. All right. I'm going to kick rocks. A little bit of an intro video is going to be out today. I'm just going to slap it back up so I can go run and get my son. I wanted to spend more time talking to you and less time with music. And I will see you guys tomorrow. All right. All the best, guys. Don't forget, links in the description, and subscribe. I'm out. Deuces.